But it's a great way of going back a year later, hearing yourself and going... Good morning, welcome to the vlog. I woke up at 5 AM this morning, watched the Grand Prix on Lucky Lewis. I have to head off to London now, but in a bit we're going to do a Q&A vlog, but now I need to wake up. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Today is St. Patrick's Day. It's also, by some weird coincidence, my little brother's birthday and my wife's little sister's birthday, both on the same day, but not on the same actual day in the same year. They're about 5 years apart, but kind of really weird how we both ended up with siblings born on the same day. Really pleased with this. Oh, hang on, into the light, Dan, into the light, use the light, use the light. Although the office isn't tidy, but I love my new space grey keyboard. So Jeff asked me an absolutely super question about mic placement and rooms and kind of how saxophones can sound brighter or darker, even though you're using the same setup, but just depending on where the mic's set up. So what I wanted to do is
thinking about what do we do next, because this is what he's been saying all along, is it
28 minutes and I've travelled 2 miles. This is the other side of London that I really do not like. Unfortunately I forgot to bring the spare battery for the Canon G7X. I've had it charging for a few hours in my office on the USB, but I don't think it's going to last much longer. So, microphone placement. Obviously, that's what I was trying to tell you on the G7X. Still stuck in massive traffic jams. Anyway, there's lots and lots of science behind where you put a microphone. Obviously, the room makes a huge amount of difference as to what you get in the sound of your saxophone. I've got to admit, I've had lots and lots of arguments over my career with recording engineers who have not got my saxophone to sound the way it sounds. Now, what's the way it sounds? They may turn around and say, well, that's just the way it is. That's like when you hear your own voice on a recording for the first time, you think, do I really sound like that? And there is an element of that in playing the saxophone. There is an element where you hear your sound and you think, do I really sound like that? But over the years, I've recorded a lot of gigs using my Zoom or using an iPhone, or I've streamed gigs and I've recorded gigs elsewhere, videos, of course, with YouTube. And I've got a pretty good idea about what my sound is. Sadly, when you're in certain rooms, so for example, on my Jazz Vespers recording, they put all the horns in this guitar room, and I argued with the engineer about it at the time, and I kind of bowed to his judgment, and I shouldn't have done that. I had a great chat with Rob Hunter, who does all Branford Marsalis's albums and who mastered my Jazz Vespers album, about kind of what to do with it. And Rob was like, you've got to record the saxophone in a bigger room if you want that kind of authentic jazz sound, because you've got to remember all those great jazz recordings. I was talking a few weeks ago about Kind of Blue. You know, that was recorded with just 7 microphones on 3 tracks in a large room in an old church. And that's how you get that sound that you're after. If you listen to a lot of Miles Davis, Coltrane, all those great albums from the 50s. If you want to capture that sound and how jazz has been recorded, you can't do it in small rooms with isolation booths. I tend to use an AKG 414, which is a really good all-round expensive condenser mic. I would love to use more ribbon mics, but I haven't got the funds to go out and blow on a load of ribbon mics. When I did What If Rupert Murdoch Liked Jazz, we recorded those on some really old vintage ribbon microphones, and also on some of the Chinese ones. I'm trying to remember what they're called now, REAs or something like that. The vintage ones were great. They're very heavy, very expensive, very, very delicate. Generally, what I want on a microphone is one that's pretty flat. For live work, I tend to use a 57 beta. On an SM57, there's just a little there's just a kind of little smidge in the way the frequencies respond on the microphone. Let's head back to the studio though. I'll try and answer Jeff's question as best I can, and then yeah, let me know your thoughts. So there you have it. I was quite surprised at how well that microphone over the head sounded. I only picked that up when I was looking for some stuff on Google yesterday, and a few sound engineers was talking about how actually they prefer to mic the saxophone up like that because it gives you the sound that the saxophone player hears, and who knows their sound better than the musician themselves. It wasn't quite for me as good as the traditional sort of jazz version of it. You know, if you see this video of Brecker or Joshua Redman or or Bramford. You know, where you've basically got kind of like, I don't know, 1.5 feet of space between the horn and the microphone, and the microphone's quite high, roughly at the same level as the neck, and it picks up all the sound of the saxophone rather than kind of the bell, which can often be quite a harsher sound. Obviously, the further you are away from the microphone, it doesn't tend to work well. That microphone doesn't. Obviously, if you're in a room setting, you've got other musicians to play, then you obviously can play around a little bit with that. But for most of you, I guess you're going to be recording along to backing tracks, or maybe with one other musician. And I think that kind of distance, 2.5 feet, keep the microphone facing down, roughly just below eye level, roughly where the mouthpiece is, but further away from you. And as long as the room's not too echoey, you end up with a good sound. Now, that sound there had no EQ on it, no compression, no reverb. I kind of was listening to it in Logic going, I really don't want to put this up because it really doesn't sound the way I want it to sound. Obviously, sometimes with microphones, you've got to adjust EQs and everything else like that. As I said, we could do a whole series of videos. I hope you find that useful. Certainly stick to either the overhead one. Maybe what I'm going to maybe think about now is when I'm recording saxophone, if I've got a big project, is to stick one over the back of my head near my ear and then have a good one there and see what that kind of sound can work like if I mix the two together. However, as I was saying in the vlog before last, don't spend too much time faffing around with equipment and gear. You know, find a setup that works and keep playing. But well done to Jeff and the rest of you who want to upload videos. It's a really, really important part of chronicling where you are in your playing, and keep doing it, because I'm always encouraging my students at Cambridge Saxophone to do that, to try and keep uploading videos as you go along. And we normally keep most of them behind the paywall, as it were, just for students, fellow students. But it's a great way of going back a year later, hearing yourself and going, yeah, I've got better. That practice definitely worked. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, check out these last 2 vlogs, and I will see you later this week for the final result. Don't forget to go and vote of the Mouthpiece Shootout. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.